YouTube. So guys, I'd like to introduce you to the CSIRO and outreach team. So join us Jim Hoyle, Lisa Solomon, Angela Compton, and Peter Cleary. So over to you guys.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Jen Hoyle. I am the Scientists and Mathematicians in Schools Project Officer. So before we get started today, so I've got with me in the room, I've got Angela Crompton, I've got Leah Solium, I've got Ian Wedlock, and I don't know if you can see, I don't think you can see Peter, but Peter's here waving. So before we get started, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the programs that we have in the CSIRO Education and Outreach, or that come under the CSIRO Education Outreach umbrella. So the ones that we're going to be talking to you today about are CREST, Digital Careers, Scientists and Mathematicians in Schools, and Sustainable Futures. So these are all separate programs that come underneath the CSIRO Education Outreach banner. So today we're going to start off with CREST. So I'm going to hand you over to Ange to talk about CREST. So, alrighty.
Hi all, my name is Angela and I'm one of the CREST officers working at CSIRO Education Outreach. Hopefully you'll get some more information post this workshop so that I can go through this quite quickly and just give you an overview. And obviously if you have any questions, please add them to the Google document that some of you have already contributed to. I've been with CSIRO for 12 months now, so still quite new to the whole Ed and Out. But CREST is a program which is basically a pathways program for implementing open inquiry in the classroom. We call it pathways and inquiry based because it's obviously using inquiry based ideas, and pathways because we take you from a limited to an open pathway for you to actually embed that into the classroom. With the diagram, you can see that we have 3 stages in our CREST materials: the explore, the experiment, and evaluate stage. So when you sign up, you'll actually see that our resources are going along that flow of ideas, and that will help students engage in the inquiry process. So rather than saying, hey, go inquire yourself, we give you a staged process for that. Also, it's a primary and secondary resource, so you don't have to just be a primary school teacher or a secondary. They're open for you to implement the Australian curriculum as you see it, and are all based on STEM thinking. So they're not just science, technology, engineering, math separately. You can embed STEM across all our resources. So in terms of what we think inquiry-based learning is, it's basically a process for us to explore the world, and it allows our students to actually come up with their own questions so they can create their learning rather than us direct their learning, and therefore it provides a scaffold for them to engage in critical and creative thinking, and hence create their learning again rather than us being the directors of their learning. So when you use CREST, you have to start thinking less as a teacher and more as a facilitator, because you have to, I suppose, add the scaffold but not control the room. And we say this because of the inquiry continuum. The wonderful people at Intel, so you can see the URL down the bottom, but if you just Google Intel Teach Elements, they actually provide a wonderful resource for implementing inquiry into the science classroom. And you can see that with this particular process, the inquiry itself isn't just totally open. You have limited inquiry, and that's where probably most of us would sit. But the purpose of having the CREST program is that we go from the structured, the guided to the open inquiry. And if you were to go straight into open inquiry, your classroom probably will fall apart, because you won't actually give the students the ability to explore those different stages. Open inquiry is our aim, our end goal, but it's not necessarily where we need to sit all the time. There's value to doing limited inquiry, but the CREST program itself doesn't actually provide you with the limited inquiry resources. It's from the structured, guided to open. I know I'm going quite quick, but again, you'll get this information in a handout, so you can actually digest these as we go along. And if you have any questions after this PD, you can always email CREST and we can answer questions for you. So how does CREST fit with the inquiry continuum? There are 6 CREST levels. As you can see, the green all the way through to the gold. And well, like I said, the green is where we start, and it starts at the structured. So in a resource like the structured inquiry, you would actually probably get some resources to use in your classroom to guide students to ask some questions about the stimulus, and then we will provide you with an inquiry for your students to do, and then they evaluate their learning. With the orange, you would still get the same stimulus or something similar, but the students then design their investigations. And then with the blue through to the gold, the students will actually start from scratch in terms of their inquiry, come up with their own stimulus, come up with their own questions, and they come up with their own investigation to conduct. Again, it doesn't have to be just science. This can be a cross-curricular program, and that's the beauty of actually having CREST. I know you can't see the small print here, but basically this is a snapshot of the program. You can see how the different levels sit under the different levels of inquiry, and the different abilities that are, I suppose, in terms of time that are required. So at the green level, you're looking at about 2 hours worth of inquiry, where at the gold level, you're looking at least 100 hours of inquiry. And that's a very, very open, up to you and your students to actually decide how you run that. If you're a primary school teacher, I would highly recommend you start at the green. But if you're a secondary school teacher who's done some inquiry already in your classroom, then probably you start at the bronze level. At each level, there are resources to support both you and the students. At the silver and the gold level, there's actually a proposal that the students have to complete that then gets approved by myself or Peter, and then the students start that inquiry process and continue. So this doesn't have to be done, within a school term or with any time limits for you. It can be done over a year or over 2 years. So if you're a year 11, year 12 teacher, that particular student can take a project from the beginning all the way to the end of their senior studies, which puts them in good stead to actually, I suppose, learn the scientific process, the design thinking process, and if they choose to do that at university, then they already have some good experience. So why do we do it? Well, it's not just because we want to teach our students science, maths, and design technology. It's actually because it engages the critical and creative thinking part of the curriculum. We are in a time of change when it comes to education and society, and our students need to inherit and develop skills that are transferable from one industry or one employment, one job to another. Just teaching content isn't going to allow them to survive in the future, a future that we don't know what's actually going to exist in terms of employment. So allowing them to engage in inquiry and open inquiry helps them to develop the skills and attributes they require to navigate a future which is very, very unknown for us and for them. So how do you get involved? So basically you can register for CREST today as a school. If you're new to it, it'll cost you $55. And if you're renewing, it'll cost you $20. As a school, any teacher can actually undertake or use the CREST materials. As you go through the levels, there is an extra charge. So as you can see at the silver and the gold levels, because of the processing and because of our, I suppose, navigating the proposals for the students, it costs a little bit extra. We are in process of reviewing that at the moment. So if you were to sign up today, that's what it will cost you. You head to CREST online, you actually add a profile, you link your school, you download materials, and you can start the program tomorrow if that's what you wanted. In terms of pathways beyond CREST, we just got back from taking, I think it was 16 students, 10 students to the Intel ICEF. So at the apex of that pyramid, you can see Intel ICEF, the International Science and Engineering Fair. So 10 students that went through, some of them went through CREST, that went through a STA competition, so your local Queensland, New South Wales, etc. competition, that then got through to the Billiton, the BHB Billiton Science and Engineering Awards, were taken to Los Angeles last week, and competed against other students in engineering and science. And I'm not sure if anyone won. We haven't had any feedback from that, but maybe Ian can tell you some of that. because he just came back from that wonderful adventure with the students. So there is a lot of pathways for this. It's not just within the CREST spectrum itself. A scientist and mathematician can come into your classroom that can, link up with SMIS. Sustainable Futures can link up into CREST Awards, and so can digital careers. So I'm going to leave you with that. I'll have a look at the Google questions, and if you have anything, please shoot them through. I hope that gives you a good snapshot of what CREST might be about. Thanks.
We are going to digital careers.
I'll pass you on to Ian.
Yes. Oops. Sorry, we're just doing a reshuffle around. So yeah, Intel ISEF was a pretty amazing experience for those students that came along with us. Really great for them to network and meet with other students from around the world. We ended up walking away with one student in third place, one student with a special award, and one student who was in first place. So really successful for those students, and a huge confidence boost for them to be recognized at that international level as well. So my name's Ian. I'm from Digital Careers, which is another program within CSIRO Education and Outreach. Digital Careers has only sat with CSIRO for a short amount of time. Our focus before coming into CSIRO was to increase the uptake of ICT study for kids entering into universities. So we did that primarily through careers fairs and attending professional learning events for teachers in schools. With the introduction of the new digital technologies curriculum, our focus is shifting more towards supporting teacher implementation of technologies within the classroom. So building teacher capacity and capability and increasing teacher confidence with the use of technology in learning. And there's a lot of crossover for us into the CREST component of CSIRO Education and Outreach as well. So within the digital technologies curriculum, we really are looking at two different concepts. So the concept of developing computational thinking, and then also the use of data that is applicable within the world of technology. So this is a little diagram that I've taken off Barefoot, which is a program online, and I'll send this link through with the resources after. And it just shows you the different types of approaches and concepts that are involved when we're developing computational thinking. So looking at logical order, so creating a set of sequence steps that a computer can follow in order to produce an outcome or a program. One of the things that's really important to recognize with the digital technologies curriculum and implementing that curriculum is that you don't necessarily always need access to technology or a computer in order to develop these sorts of skills. We do them in every part of our life. Every decision that we make is analyzing our situation, predicting outcomes, looking at patterns that have previously occurred in our lives, evaluating and then making a judgment and making a decision based on all of those factors and the data that we've analyzed from our environment. If we then make that decision and something goes wrong, we then jump across into the approaches. So we have to problem solve, we have to tinker, we have to debug. So looking at what are the errors, and then alter our decision or the way that we've tried to solve that problem based on our analysis. So again, as Angela was saying, developing those skills of critical and creative thinking through this computational thinking process. So looking at this picture here, one of the things that is important when we're looking at computational thinking is data. So in this image here, we can see that there's a lot of data that's coming out of this. We have two students that are crossing the road and a stop sign. So we've got our zebra walkway, which is an aspect of our data. If there was a car in the background, I would need to look at that situation, analyze how fast is the car going, is it going to stop, do I need to alter my decision based on that car's movements? If it was a bike, so a push bike, my decision-making process would obviously be different because I've got a different set of data inputs. So in this situation here, these two students and also the traffic controller there are using computational thinking and that process of evaluating a situation and making a decision based on the information that's available. So within looking at data, we have our inputs, we have the evaluation of those inputs, and we have our output. So the ways that we are developing these particular skills in students and enabling teachers in the classroom is through two particular programs. The first one is called Bebras, and that's an online challenge that's delivered in schools. Students participate individually or they participate in small groups. And it's really good to participate as a class in groups because then you can encourage that collaboration. Bebras is free. It's run 2 times per year, once in March and once in September. And it's scaffolded. So it starts at a simplified level and then it builds its way up through the challenges. So if you're in a primary context, lower primary, there's specific age groups that you can work on. You're not restricted to that. So if you have students that are accelerated, they're really good at computational thinking and they're good logical thinkers, then you can accelerate them through that program as well. The other aspect of Bebras is Bebras 365. That's the program that students can use all year round. So on that website, you'll notice up the top, there's a Bebras 365 tab that you can click on as well. So that program's probably more closed in the way that it operates. So it's single activities that are delivered to the students. The other program that Digital Careers looks after is called Young ICT Explorers. This program is often referred to as YICTI. And this is a program where students develop a project of their choice and they submit it to the competition to be judged by a panel of industry partners and ICT professionals. So they're assessed on their creativity, uniqueness, quality, level of difficulty, and their project documentation. So again, it's very, very similar to CREST in that we have an open-ended space where students are developing a project of their own choice to solve a technology problem or solve a problem in the world that is using technology in that process. So again, the website's there for you to note down, but I'll also put it in the Google Doc for you. So within all of this, within Digital Careers, we really like for teachers to be aware of the 2 T's that exist within the world of technologies. Digital immersion and disruptive technologies is something that has really dominated the media and a large push from both federal and state government departments. It's important to recognize that there are 2 types of careers that students can enter into. There's careers that are technology dominated. So big T, their whole entire job is about technology. So these are our computer programmers, they're our games developers, there are people who are immersed in technology. And then there are our people who are going into a career that uses technology. So every other job that is out there certainly uses technology as part of their process. The skills of computational thinking and being aware of data is an incredibly important thing for young people to be aware of. Social media, marketing managers, people who are in that space are using data in really powerful ways in order to inform where their business decides to make changes. So it's data-driven innovation or decisions that are made in business are really something that's being pushed. So having the ability to understand data, unpack it, sort it, and make a decision based on that data is quite important as well. So the programs that Digital Careers offers and having a focus of technologies in the classroom is incredibly important because it's in every aspect of our industry. And my final slide there is a careers map that has been developed by the ACS Foundation. This is a really great map to give to students that are very passionate about technology because it gives them a pathway for them to lead into. So the sorts of things that they might study at university or at a certificate level through TAFE, and a general idea of what sorts of interests that they need as well. So again, if you've got questions, pop them in the Google Doc and we'll come back to those later. I'm handing back to Jen.
Okay, so I'm aware it's probably been a bit death by PowerPoint here for you all. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I am the project officer for scientists and mathematicians in schools. I should mention at this point, we are currently undergoing a name change. So in the future, you may see us, we will see us referred to as STEM professionals in schools, or SPS. But for the moment, we're still scientists and mathematicians in schools. So that's what we're going with. Okay, so I just want you to have a look at this picture. This is probably one of my favourite pictures that we have that's come out of the program, and I want you to think about who or what inspired you on your pathway to where you are now. So we all had someone in our lives who gave us some sort of idea or some sort of push towards where we are now. So what is SMIS? So we are a nationwide program. We've been running since 2007, and we started off as just scientists in schools, and we then expanded the program to also include mathematicians as a sub-program, mathematicians in schools, and then about 4 years ago we expanded to also include ICT in schools. So hence the name change. We're going to STEM professionals in schools to encompass all of those different STEM professionals. So what we do is we create partnerships between STEM professionals in the community and teachers. These are ongoing partnerships, and they can be as creative, as you want. They can basically take you anywhere that you want to go with STEM in your classroom. So we class a STEM professional as anyone who's got a tertiary qualification in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. And we cater to all schools, so private, state, etc. And we do prep to year 12. Okay, so just an example. I won't read all these out, but these are just some examples of the STEM professionals that we have involved. This is by no means exhaustive, an exhaustive list of the types of STEM professionals that we have on our database, but it just gives you an idea of some of the people who might actually already be in your local communities that you can get in to help you with your STEM delivery or STEM engagement. Oftentimes teachers tend to think of a STEM professional as being someone who is a researcher working in the university. They're an academic working in the university space. That's not often the way. The majority of the time STEM professionals are doing a variety of roles. So what are some of the things that partnerships can do? Again, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but these are just some of the more common types of activities that partnerships tend to get involved in. So it might be having someone come out during Science Week to judge the science competition, or coming in and growing crystals. Might be entering a competition, like a seedling growing competition, etc. It can be a virtual partnership, so it can be linking up via something like Google Hangouts or Skype. it can just be coming in talking about your career, and oftentimes that can just be just as powerful as anything else that a STEM professional can do is for students to just engage with a STEM professional and to realize they are just a person, and that they don't necessarily wear the lab coat and have white frizzy hair. So, so you know, again, what you do in your partnership or what happens in partnerships is only really limited by your your time, so the availability of yourself and your STEM professional partner, and your imagination, basically. Okay, so I've just got a few examples. I'll run through these really quickly because I will send Paul a document, a link for a document that has all of these on there. But these are just some examples of stuff that has happened in partnerships over the years. So this particular partnership had a biosecurity sort of focus. So they had a plant health scientist working with them, and it was actually a community project that they were working on. So it was over a period of time, and they were setting traps and undertaking surveillance of fruit flies that were in their local area. So which is really nice because it gives students a really local focus and to understand how science impacts on them and their local community. This is another one. This is a mathematics partnership or a mathematicians in schools partnership. So it was a group of year 8 students who worked with their mathematician to design a piece of artwork which was based on this icosahedron shape. So they had to first understand the structure of the shape and how to turn it into a 3D model. Then they were talking about materials they were going to use, and you should be able to see in the picture that they end up using CDs and cable ties to create quite a large icosahedron structure that is now a piece of art in their school. And this one is actually one of my favourites. So this is actually an example from Tasmania where a researcher working on tracking seal movement actually worked with his students. So he was working with a group of grade 3 and 4 students, and he took in the data loggers, the GPS trackers that they use to attach to the seals. And this was a really well integrated STEM activity because they had to look at, okay, well, how are we going to attach it to ourselves? But they obviously couldn't glue it because that's there are rules against gluing things to students. So they had to work out and engineer a way that they could attach the tags to themselves for 24 hours. And then they had to collect the data and analyze the data. And then they had more questions that came out of that because they determined the home range of the students over that 24-hour period, which you can see in this lower picture here. And so then they had more questions. Then they got questions about, well, why did the grade 3s have a bigger home range than the grade 4s? And they after analysing the data, they had a lot more questions that they then wanted to analyse using those data trackers. So that's one of my most favourite examples. Okay, so I'll just very quickly talk through where we fit within the Australian curriculum. So as you're all aware, you've got the science understanding, science to human endeavour, and science inquiry skills. So science understanding is going to be covered off by the knowledge of the STEM professional. Where we tend to see our value more so is in the science as a human endeavour strand. So just having a STEM professional come into the classroom and share their background, share their stories, particularly if they've had a non-traditional pathway to their career. It's always really valuable. And exposing students to a variety of different STEM careers and giving them a context for what it is, why they're doing what they're doing in the classroom. And also we find that STEM professionals are very valuable when it comes to the science inquiry skills as well. They help students to work out, okay, is this a fair test? How do I design an experiment? How do I collect that data? So going through all of the processes to get them to collecting data. So starting at experimental design, data collection, data evaluation, and then reporting of that data. So, I mean, that's obviously very valuable in a secondary setting with EEIs, but I think it's just as important all the way from, starting at prep to get students thinking in those ways of how do we create a fair test? How do we test something? How do we collect the data? Okay, so if you aren't already involved in SMIS, you can get involved by heading online. So if you can Google scientists and mathematicians in schools. I can always also send a link through to Paul. There's 3 strands, obviously the science, the maths, and the ICT. You can register for all of them. You can register for one of them. That's completely up to you. So once you register, once you register, I will receive the registration and get in touch with you. When you register, if you can provide as much detail as possible about the type of engagements, the type of partnership that you would prefer, that will make our job a little bit easier in matching you with a STEM professional. So some feedback from students. My favourite is, I didn't know what a girl engineer was. I think I always get a giggle at that one. And I like this. They now want to work in Antarctica thanks to their engagement with their STEM professional. So yeah, I think students get a great deal out of it. And again, it provides support for STEM, for science. It provides support for teachers in the delivery and engagement of STEM in their classrooms. So I have a teaching background, and I know that often you get a little bit jaded when you're in the classroom all day, every day, and you tend to forget what it's all about. And I think having contact with a STEM professional can re-energize your teaching and make you refocus on what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. So, as I said, if you want to get involved, I will send a link to Paul, which he can pass on to you or put in a repository somewhere, but you can also Google scientists and mathematicians in schools. And I think that's about it. And now I'm going to pass on to Leah.
Thanks, Jen. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leah, and I'm the Education and Outreach Specialist for Sustainable Futures. I'm also the final PowerPoint for this afternoon and the only person who didn't put my name on the first slide. So as the name suggests, Sustainable Futures is about sustainability education. Sustainability is such a huge umbrella term. I find when I engage with teachers, there's a very large array of understanding what sustainability is, and sustainability is really core to a lot of the R&D that happens here at CSIRO. So if you were to have a look online at CSIRO and have a look at a lot of the research that gets done, sustainability is a huge part of it. So it's really great that we can now be in a space where we support education and sustainability in schools. If you want to have a quick think in your mind what sustainability means to you, that would be great. I'm about to show up what sustainability means to students. Here's some of the responses. Some might be familiar to you if you've played in this space already. I do like the last one. Sustainability is not just cleaning up your own room. It's about keeping tidy an even bigger room that belongs to everybody, which is so true. I'm not going to give a definition of sustainability, but my favorite thing to say is that it's making sure there is, 4 words, enough for everybody forever. So as long as you're doing things in the class that are not just teaching content, but taking action in sustainability in the class that support that understanding that it's making sure that we have enough for everybody forever. That's really important. How did we even get to this place where we're talking about education for sustainability? Well, it came about by these couple of documents here. So if you've got some time, I really encourage you to download the first 2, the Education for Sustainability pamphlet. It's only about, the one on the left there, it's not very big, couple pages, which was put together by the Australian Government and ARIES and Macquarie University. And then the Sustainability Curriculum Framework document, it's a little bit bigger. And then sustainability migrated over into the Australian curriculum. It's now one of the cross-curriculum priorities. So our program, Sustainable Futures, it aims to develop skills and knowledge and values that promote positive behaviour and action towards a more sustainable environment. It combines scientific research, not just what happens within CSIRO, although we do use a lot of that for some of the content in our units, but also a lot of the great research that happens around the world by other organisations and institutions, plus combining with education for sustainability. There's a lot of negativity that comes along with sustainability. It's not all doom and gloom. So we like to combine, we like to have a positive outlook that there are things that we can actually do. So it's about empowering ourselves and students towards creating a sustainable future. So it encourages skills in analysis, literature research, there's experimental investigations that you can do, a lot of critical thinking and collaborative learning that takes place. It definitely encourages action-based approach, and I'm going to show you some case studies later on. It does encourage school communities to build knowledge, values and skills that enable their young people to take action for a more sustainable future. And also something that we really encourage is collaboration between schools. And we currently have a Sustainable Futures Ning site that facilitates that to take place. The kind of support that you get when you register for Sustainable Futures, and it is a free program, so you just register through the CSIRO Education website, is you get access to a range, to a set of integrated Australian curriculum aligned units, and they're currently aimed at years 5 to 10. We do have some more units coming on board very soon. So there's a lot of cross-curricular activities in there to support the teaching and learning of sustainability. Lots of activities and suggestions of projects to encourage staff and students to take action, not just within their school, but in the wider community as well. We do provide support to assist with implementation. So on request, if there's professional development, if you would like us to come and help you roll it out further in your school, then we can talk some professional development. And the last one there is where practical, we do offer a full day activation workshop, which is facilitated by our CSIRO scientists. That's a full day of activities, of hands-on activities that the kids will do, completely immersed in sustainability activities. It does say we're practical. So often what we do is we have a couple of schools, if they're registered to the program in the same area, come together, and they usually select about 10 students to come. So it's a real networking opportunity as well for other schools. These are the units that we have currently. They, when you register to the program, you get a link to where they're stored. So they're stored digitally on our Ning site, and you can download them from there. So they're the ones that we currently have. And they're divided up into different themes. So we have energy, biodiversity, carbon chemistry, and carbon storage. And we do have food security and agriculture coming soon for, I think it's 4 to 6 and a senior one as well. And we do have an energy one that is coming for year 7 to 10 as well. They are all aligned to the Australian curriculum, and this is what you'll see when you open the units of work. They've got this one is showing science, but they may be geography or maths. They'll show you the descriptor and the types of the types of activities and where they link in the curriculum. So the topics within the unit themselves are divided up into themes as well, and then they've got activities within those themes. So if you're looking for a particular content strand, you can go there and have a look at which activity relates to that. As well as scientific inquiry skills or science as a human endeavour. Everything that's in the units is, all the activities and demonstrations and things that are suggested in there are designed to be cost effective and easily obtained. So, you know, if you've got a Bunnings or a hardware store near you or a supermarket, you'll be able to get most of the things you need from there. And of course, where possible, it's great to utilise recycled materials. One of the units that we have is a Sustainability Action Project unit, and this unit is specifically designed to help you to implement some sort of a project, an action project within your school or wider community, and it follows the 5-step process that was outlined in one of the documents that I started with. It's the Sustainability Curriculum Framework. So it's a 5-step process. Firstly, identifying a case for change. You know, it might be that our school energy bill is too high. So then you'd go and explore, what are we going to do about it? Make a proposal, you would act, and then you would evaluate what you've done. So all the suggested activities that you can do in that unit follow the same 5-step process. And here's some of the things that you could potentially do, and these are in the unit, and there's a lot of other ones that you could do. So perhaps an action project to absorb carbon. I know lots of schools are already doing these types of activities, planting trees, working with local councils. One of our schools got a grant, and they, one teacher that I met at a PD got a grant, and they were revegetating an area behind their school. So they were planting a whole heap of trees behind their school. Some of the action projects to inform the school and community there, you know, writing a story to design to inform others. And that's actually my case study coming up on the next slide, I think. Yeah, it's my first case study. So this comes out of a school in WA. And it actually came through a collaboration between CSIRO and the Global CCS Institute. There was a challenge that was put forward. And this is the thing that the year 6 and 7 students, I think it's St. Michael's, came up with, and they wrote a book, and it's called A Day in the Life of a Carbon Atom. It's a story by students, for students, about a really complicated, or can be really complicated, technology, carbon capture and storage. It's a fantastic book. It has been translated in lots of different languages, most recently in Chinese. And you can download it off the website, off online, sorry. So the link is there, but I'll send that around into the information that I forward to Paul later. And there's also a video of the students all reading the book, so you can watch that as well. But that's a nice suggested activity that you could do with your class. They could write a story together. Whether or not it could get, you know, published into hard copy, that doesn't really matter. But it certainly has been a really valuable resource for those students, for their school community, and now such a wider reach as well. So that's great. The second case study, this is also in the projects unit, is a biodiversity survey that happened in a primary school. Often there's great support from parents, and this was one of those cases where there was a really enthusiastic parent who helped get this up and running. So they did a biodiversity survey within their school. It happened again in the following year with another 20 Sustainable Future schools that participated in collecting data. And they entered the data on CSIRO's Atlas of Living Australia database. And I don't know whether you're aware of that, but that's something that you should have a look at. So you can get heaps of information there about the biodiversity, and you can also submit information that you have. So this is now an annual event that they do in the school, which is a really great thing for the school, and they got media along that comes to help support and promote it. The final, the students at Hornsby North Public School down in New South Wales, so they've got an amazing vegetable garden, composting system. Yeah, they do a whole heap to do with recycling. And last year on World Food Day, they had a lovely visit from the Sunrise team who went to their school and checked out their garden and spent the morning there having a look at all the types of things that those students in the school is doing to I guess, yeah, take great action for sustainability. And that's the final one. This is a video, I won't play this, but this is just a shot of some of the types of things that kids do during the activation workshop that I was telling you about. So these boys are planting seeds, and there's a whole load of other activities that they engage with. The video is actually on the website, so if you want to go and have a look at the video, you can watch that. It's on the CSIRO Education website under Sustainable Futures, and that's where you go to if you want to register for the program. So I've put a little image there. There's just a button that says register your school. Once you fill in all your details, you will get, like I said before, a link to our Ning site where you go. It is a two-part registration phase then, so you have to register to Ning as well, so you can download those resources, but they're all up online. And I just want to reiterate what Ange said before. Sustainable Futures fits nicely within that pyramid, so there are different, there are different activities obviously that you can do within Sustainable Futures. Some of those, if they're an investigation, can feed into CREST, and then they can feed their way up to that great competition over in America that she was talking about. And the next slide just shows one of those students that went over this year, Amber. She did a project that was sustainability related. So they don't have to be sustainability related, but it just so happened that a lot of the BHP Billiton Science and Engineering Awards that came through this year had a sustainability focus. So another one you can see on the left there was a student who made some bioplastics and did a whole heap of testing with those bioplastics. But Amber did, hers was a sustainability project around composting. Oh, this was the third place. Amber was the third place. So she set up some composting systems for cocoa shells. So that's really great. You can have a look at these, by the way, if you go to the scienceawards.org.au website, and there's videos there too of the students talking about their projects, which is great. Where to next in sustainability if you want some support? In CSIRO, sorry, someone's talking to me. In CSIRO website, you can have a look at the blog. That's probably a really good place to start too, because as I mentioned, there's a lot that takes place within our research. So you could also have a look at the different business units, so energy, food and nutrition, and a whole range of other websites up there, or suggested ideas, Travel Smart, your local council, non-for-profits. In Brisbane, we've got some great work happening around native bees, some not-for-profits that go around and help out schools and put hives in schools, and they do some really great work. So there's lots of different places that you can get further support for sustainability. And that's me. Thank you very much. Am I handing over to somebody else now? We might have a look at our question sheet. There seem to be a lot of questions about Smith, so I'll hand back to Jen.
Okay, so I'll just have a quick look at the questions that we've got here on the Google Docs. Do they focus on just one area of science? This is from Kathy Wilson. So yes and no. It depends on the STEM professional. Obviously, they will have a specialisation, but generally, what we find is that a STEM professional with a tertiary level of education is able to do a wide variety of the science curriculum, particularly in the primary school. So yeah, that they can cover a wide. They don't have to just, if they're a geologist, they don't just have to come in and do a geology practical or talk about earth science. They can help with a whole range of things. As I mentioned before, they can also assist with experimental design and the science as a human endeavour strands as well. Can the scientists in school work with teachers to improve science content knowledge? Absolutely. Again, that's a different partnership mode. We had a mathematician who just worked with teachers, and they would go and run staff PD sessions for groups of teachers. So yeah, absolutely. It can be as formal or as informal as you like. It can just be providing with resources, or if you've got a particular if you've got a particular concept that you're not sure of, you can get support with that as well. So yeah, definitely that's an excellent mode of operation for a partnership. Can scientists in schools work across all levels of prep to year 6? Absolutely. So prep to year 12, we can work with the scientists in schools can work across. Often when the STEM professional registers, because they go through a registration process as well, when the STEM professional registers, they nominate which areas they feel comfortable working in. So we sort of partner them based on their preferences in that regard. I should mention also that we handle, just while I've got it in my head, that we handle all the blue card checks for the STEM professionals. So when they first register with the program, if they don't already have a blue card, we provide them with the paperwork, and we actually don't physically match them with a school until their blue card has been approved. And then when it comes up for renewal, we handle all the renewal processes as well. So it's part of our funding agreement that no STEM professionals can be in partnerships without a blue card or working with children check, depending on which state. Which days of the week can the science school work in schools? That's up to the STEM professional and their schedule. I have some partnerships where the STEM professional goes in once a week. I've got some partnerships where they go in once a year. The general regularity tends to be about once a term. So we tend to find 4 times a year tends to be what works well for most STEM professionals and for most teachers as well, because there's obviously time pressures on the school end, and there's also time pressures on the STEM professionals end as well. And they might also say, look, I'm no good for the first half of the year because I've got other commitments, but second half of the year I can come in, a few times. So yeah, it's all very fluid, and it's all individual to that partnership. How much notice does the science school need to start working with a school? Okay, so this is a good question. Can we respond to a request within days, weeks, or months? Okay. What I tend to say is it won't happen overnight, but it will happen. So the way our program works is that we have a pool of registered teachers, and we have a pool of registered STEM professionals. As you can probably imagine, all of the registered STEM professionals tend to be centred around Brisbane CBD and around universities and the like. And as I mentioned before, we match based on preferences of the teacher and preferences of the STEM professional. So we don't actually go and physically recruit STEM professionals. So if someone says, I'm looking for a microbiologist, we don't go and actively recruit. We only go based on the pool of STEM professionals that we have. So if we happen to have a STEM professional registered that is a microbiologist and is happy to work in that area, bingo, that's fantastic. So it's a bit like I'm a bit like the RSVP or the online dating world. So it tends to be right place, right time, fantastic. So particularly for those rural and remote partnerships, we tend to for those rural and remote partnerships, we do tend to suggest maybe like an online type of partnership. So using hookups, or we also do provide a small amount of funding for a visit once a year. We provide funding for the STEM professional to visit. We pay for flights or vehicle hire, petrol, accommodation, etc. If they do have a regional and remote partnership as well. So we class that as if the STEM professional has to travel more than 100 kilometres in one direction, we class that as being a regional or a long distance partnership. So I think I respond to that. So yes, it can take us. The upshot of that question is yes, it can take us quite a lot of time to find a proper match. So if you come to us with a specific request, it's probably pretty rare that I'm going to be able to match you up in any sort of with period of time. So yeah, it does take a little bit of time. The other option is that if you have a STEM professional, if you know a STEM professional in your local community, you can actually both register and I can partner you. So it's you can find your own partner and I can partner you. Are we familiar with the Australian curriculum? I hope I answered that in my presentation. Yes. Excellent. Could CIS run the CREST program extension? Yes, absolutely. So that is one of the the values of the two programs, is they link together very well. So a STEM professional could work with groups of students, particularly around experimental design and support of data collection and so on and so forth. So yeah, CREST and SMIS fit together very nicely. What sort of activities can a mathematician in schools do? There's quite a few, you'd be surprised, quite a few different things that mathematicians can do in schools. So some fairly common examples that we have are people as mathematicians working with small groups of students who might need acceleration, or groups of students who are perhaps struggling in maths. We had one partnership where the mathematician got some data from the International Space Station, and they worked on an extended project analysing the data from the International Space Station. Just trying to think. The other example was the mathematician who works with the teachers to support them. Just trying to think some other good mathematician. Oh, the SEAL partnership that I mentioned, that was actually a Mathematicians in Schools partnership. So even though the scientist was doing SEAL monitoring, the data collection and data analysis, that was actually part of their Mathematicians in Schools partnership. So yeah, so that's what I can think of off the top of my head at the moment. But on our website, we actually do have a section called Showcases, and there's a massive list there of things that other partnerships have done. I can send that link to Paul as well, so you can feel free to have a look at that. How long does the mathematician or scientist work for in a school? I'm not sure what type of time periods. If it's for a visit, that again, that's up to the STEM professional and the teacher. If you're talking about over how long, as in the lifespan of the partnership, is that what we're? Okay. So our partnerships are ongoing. So that means they actually have no, no end date, no expiry date. Thank you, Leah. We have partnerships that have been running since 2007. So we've got partnerships that have been running 10 years. We've got partnerships that might run for a couple of years. The teacher moves, the STEM professional moves, life happens, and then I can repartner those people if they want or need to be repartnered. Generally, we tend to find the average age of a partnership tends to be about 2.5 years. So yeah, but again, that's if you're happy and everything's going along swimmingly, then that's great. You can keep going for as long as you like. Okay, so I think that's the end of my questions, Paul. So how would you like me to send you the PowerPoint and all of those resources that we've referred to? Would you like me to send that to you, and then you can put that in a central location? Fantastic. Excellent.
So Jen and the whole CSIRO education outreach team, I mean, the guys who were in this room earlier today, everything you talked about is a follow-on from the session we just did on connecting curriculum and how we're going to look at connecting curriculum, and you've given us some indications there. And it's also going to feed into tomorrow, where we're spending a fair bit of time looking at critical and creative thinking. So
good.
It's been a great insight into the sorts of things that you do. So, from Angela and Crest with the IBL and critical creative thinking, Ian with Bebras and Young ICT Explorers, which we've promoted through the region, your stuff with the STEM professionals and some really powerful learning examples, and Leah with her Sustainable Futures. You've done a great job in presenting this information to us this afternoon. So I think if you could all join me in thanking the CSIRO education outreach team.
I'll clap for you guys. Thank you. Thanks for having us along. And yeah, and I hope you get something out of that. And look, we're all here at the end of the phone or at the end of the email to answer questions. And as I said, we'll make all those resources available to you. But yeah, any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us and we'll help you to the best of our ability. Okay. Thanks, Paul. Bye, everybody.